Stepfather kicks Stepdaughter out of the house. When the mother arrives and sees the scene, she is shocked and screams, leading to a series of unexpected events. The morning sun barely broke through the thick clouds above Evergreen, but inside the Evergreen household, the atmosphere was heavy with tension. In the small kitchen, Eleanor sat at the table, her fingers nervously tracing patterns on the edge of her cereal bowl. Across from her, Gregory, her father, was silent, his face a mask of disapproval as he sipped his coffee. The air was thick with unspoken words, a storm brewing just beneath the surface. Eleanor's thoughts raced as she tried to focus on her breakfast. She felt small and invisible, trapped in a bubble of inadequacy. Why couldn't her father just look at her with pride? Why did his gaze always seem to drift away, as if she were not worth his attention? She longed for his approval, but it always felt just out of reach, like a shadow slipping through her fingers. She wanted to scream, to unleash the frustration that had built up over the years, but the fear of his wrath kept her silent. "Are you going to just sit there all day?" Gregory's voice broke through her thoughts, icy and sharp. "You need to do something with your life, Eleanor. This aimlessness is pathetic." His words stung like a slap. Eleanor's heart raced, and she could feel the heat rising to her cheeks. She didn't want to be aimless. She wanted to matter. "I'm trying, Dad," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "I just need a little support." "Support?" Gregory scoffed, his eyes narrowing. "Support is earned, not given. You need to earn your place in this world." The bitterness in his tone pierced through her. The years of feeling like a disappointment bubbled to the surface, and Eleanor felt her chest tighten. She pushed her chair back, the sound echoing in the otherwise quiet room. "You don't understand anything about me. You only see what you want to see. What I see is a daughter who has everything handed to her, yet still can't manage to make something of herself." Gregory shot back, his voice rising. The room felt like it was closing in around Eleanor, suffocating her. With a sudden surge of emotion, she stood tall, her heart pounding in her ears. "Maybe I don't want to be like you. Maybe I don't want to follow your rules anymore." The silence that followed was deafening. Gregory's eyes widened in disbelief, and for a moment, Eleanor thought she could see a flicker of something, hurt maybe, but it vanished just as quickly, replaced by a cold glare. "Then maybe you should leave," he said, his voice low and steady. "If you can't respect this family, then you don't belong here." Eleanor felt the world tilt beneath her. She had never seen him so unyielding, so harsh. "Dad, please, leave," he thundered, his voice echoing off the walls. In that moment, Eleanor's heart shattered. The weight of betrayal crushed her, and she turned away, tears streaming down her cheeks. She grabbed her bag and hurried out the door, the cold air biting at her skin as she stepped into the unforgiving world outside. The warmth of the home she had known felt like a distant memory, replaced by the chilling realization that she was alone. As she walked away, Eleanor felt the sting of the morning sun on her back, but it did little to ease the chill in her heart. What had just happened? How had it come to this? Questions swirled in her mind, but all she could focus on was the overwhelming sense of betrayal and the longing for a father who had never truly been there for her. Would she find her way back? Would she ever feel accepted? As she wandered the streets of Evergreen, the answers felt as elusive as the warmth of the home she had just left behind. Clara stepped through the door, her heart racing. The moment she entered the Evergreen household, she felt the weight of chaos hanging in the air. Eleanor's belongings lay scattered across the living room floor, clothes, books, and framed pictures of happier times, all thrown together in a chaotic pile. Clara's breath caught in her throat as she took in the scene. "What happened here?" she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. She instinctively reached for a small teddy bear, a remnant of Eleanor's childhood, and felt a wave of sadness wash over her. The house was silent, but Clara could hear the echoes of the confrontation that had just taken place. She closed her eyes, trying to piece together the moments that led to this. A flashback struck her, taking her back to the many times she had sat between Eleanor and Gregory, mediating their arguments. "Just let it go, Clara. You always take her side," Gregory had said one night, his voice cold and sharp. Clara remembered the feeling of being caught in the middle, torn between her husband and her daughter. She shook her head now, trying to forget those moments, but they pressed heavily on her mind. Had she really chosen Gregory's peace over Eleanor's emotional needs? Why didn't I see it sooner? Clara thought, her heart aching. The memories flooded in, each one a reminder of her failures. There was the time Eleanor had come home crying after a fight at school, and Clara had brushed it off, thinking it was just a phase. Then, there was the day Eleanor had begged for a family outing, but Gregory had insisted on staying home to watch the game. Clara had nodded, not wanting to disturb the fragile peace. Clara felt trapped, caught in her own dilemma. "I should have done something," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. The weight of her choices settled on her shoulders like a heavy cloak. She picked up a photo frame, dusting it off. It showed a family picnic, laughter frozen in time. Clara's heart twisted at the sight. "What happened to us?" she questioned aloud, not expecting an answer. Just then, the front door creaked open, and Clara turned to see Gregory step inside. His face was a mask of anger and confusion. "Where's Eleanor?" he demanded, his voice echoing through the silent house. "She left," Clara replied, her tone steady but her heart racing. "You pushed her away, Gregory." His eyes narrowed, and he took a step closer. "I was just trying to teach her discipline. You can't let her walk all over you." Clara felt a fire ignite within her. "Teach her discipline? Is that what you call it? You've made her feel worthless. She needed you, and you were too busy trying to control her." Gregory's expression shifted, a flicker of uncertainty crossing his face. "I was only doing what a father should do. A father should support and love his child, not belittle her," Clara shot back, anger rising in her voice. Silence hung between them, thick and heavy. Clara's chest tightened as she thought of Eleanor, alone and hurt. "We need to find her," she said, her voice softer now. "She deserves to know we care." Gregory looked away, the fight leaving his body. "I didn't mean for it to end up like this," he admitted, his tone now laced with regret. Clara sighed, feeling the burden of their shared guilt. "We both made mistakes, but we can't let our daughter suffer because of them." With a nod, Gregory seemed to gather himself. "Then let's go. We need to fix this." Clara felt a sense of determination build within her. Together, they would find Eleanor and make things right. But deep down, she knew that this was just the beginning of a long road ahead. As they left the house, Clara's heart raced with both fear and hope, ready to face the consequences of their actions. Clara hurried through the streets of Evergreen, her heart pounding in her chest. The chilly air bit at her cheeks, but she hardly noticed. All she could think about was Eleanor. Where could she be? The thought of her daughter, alone in the cold, sent a wave of panic through her. Clara's mind raced as she retraced Eleanor's steps, recalling the places they had visited together when Eleanor was small. As she walked, memories flooded her mind. There was the little bakery with the sweet smell of pastries that always made Eleanor smile. There was the park where they had spent countless afternoons together, laughing and playing. But now, all Clara felt was despair. The happy memories felt like a cruel reminder of how far apart they had drifted. "Why didn't I see it sooner?" Clara whispered to herself, her breath visible in the cold air. She paused for a moment, leaning against a lamppost, feeling the weight of her choices heavy on her shoulders. The truth was, she had often chosen Gregory's peace over Eleanor's happiness. What had she done? The park came into view, and Clara quickened her pace. As she entered, she glanced around, her eyes searching for a familiar figure. Then she saw her. Eleanor sat on a bench, her shoulders slumped, her face buried in her hands. Clara's heart sank. She approached slowly, unsure of how to bridge the gap that had grown between them. "Eleanor," Clara called softly, afraid to startle her. Eleanor looked up, her eyes red and swollen from crying. The sight broke Clara's heart. "Mom," Eleanor said, her voice shaky and filled with hurt. Clara sat down next to her, the bench cold beneath them. "I've been looking for you." "I was so worried," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I didn't want to talk to you. I don't want to talk to anyone," Eleanor replied, turning her gaze away. The tension in the air was palpable, filled with unspoken words and raw emotions. "I understand," Clara said, her throat tight. "But I need you to know that I'm here for you. I'm so sorry for what happened with Gregory. It should not have come to that." Eleanor scoffed, wiping her tears angrily. "You always choose him, Mom. You never chose me. Why should I believe that now?" Clara felt a sharp pang of guilt. "I know I've made mistakes. I should have stood up for you. I should have listened to you. I thought I was protecting our family, but I see now that I hurt you instead." Eleanor met her mother's gaze, her expression a mix of vulnerability and defiance. "I needed you to protect me from him. You could have done something, but you didn't. You just let him treat me like I didn't matter." Clara's heart ached at her daughter's words. "I know. I was scared. I was scared of losing him and scared of losing you. But I see how wrong I was. I should have put you first." Eleanor shook her head, tears spilling down her cheeks again. "It's too late for that, isn't it? I'm already gone. You let him push me away." Clara reached out, taking Eleanor's hand in hers. "It's not too late. We can fix this. I want to fix this. Please, let me try." Eleanor hesitated, searching her mother's eyes for sincerity. "You really mean that?" "I do," Clara replied, her voice steady. "I want to be there for you, to support you. I want to hear you. I want to understand what you need." Silence hung between them, heavy yet hopeful. Finally, Eleanor nodded slightly, a flicker of trust returning to her eyes. "Okay, but it's going to take time." Clara squeezed her hand gently. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes. Just tell me what you need." Eleanor took a deep breath, her expression softening a little. "I just need you to be on my side. For once." "I will be. I promise," Clara said, her heart swelling with a mix of hope and determination. In that moment, sitting together on the park bench, they began to bridge the emotional distance that had grown between them. It was a small step, but it felt like the start of something new, something they both desperately needed. Clara sat down on the park bench next to Eleanor, her heart heavy with the weight of unspoken emotions. The air was filled with a tense silence, broken only by the soft rustle of leaves in the gentle breeze. She looked at her daughter, whose tear-streaked face reflected a mix of vulnerability and anger. "Eleanor," Clara began, her voice trembling slightly, I'm so sorry for everything. I never wanted you to feel alone." Eleanor turned her gaze toward the ground, her fists clenched in her lap. "You don't understand, Mom. It's not just about today, it's everything. I've felt like I don't matter to you or Dad for so long." Clara felt a pang in her chest at her daughter's words. "I know I haven't been the best mother," she admitted. "I should have stood up for you more. I let Gregory's needs come first, and I see now how much that hurt you." Eleanor finally looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. "You really see that? You always seemed to think I was just being dramatic, that I was overreacting." "I was wrong," Clara confessed, her voice thick with emotion. "I thought I was keeping the peace, but I was only pushing you away. I didn't realize how much you needed me to fight for you." Eleanor's expression softened, yet the hurt lingered. "But why didn't you? Why did you let him treat me like that?" Clara took a deep breath, gathering her thoughts. "I guess I was scared of what it would mean for our family. I thought if I kept quiet, everything would stay normal. But normal isn't what you needed." The tears that had been pooling in Eleanor's eyes began to spill over. "I wanted you to be my mom. I wanted you to protect me. Instead, It felt like you were choosing him over me." Clara reached out, gently placing her hand on Eleanor's. "I didn't mean to make you feel that way. I should have listened to you. I should have seen the pain you were in. I'm so sorry." Eleanor wiped her tears with the back of her hand, her voice shaky as she asked, "Do you really mean it? Can we fix this?" Clara nodded, tears glistening in her own eyes. "I want to. I want to be here for you, to support you, no matter what. We can work through this together." For a moment, the weight of their shared pain hung in the air, but slowly, the tension began to melt away. Eleanor felt a flicker of hope. "I felt so lost, Mom. I've wanted to scream, to make someone hear me." Clara squeezed her hand tighter. "Then let's start by talking. No more hiding, no more silence. I'm here to listen." Eleanor took a deep breath, feeling a shift in the atmosphere. "I've been so angry at Dad for how he treats me, and angry at you for not stopping him. It felt like I was fighting a battle all alone." "I should have been your ally," Clara said, her voice filled with sincerity. "I should have fought alongside you. I see that now, and I'm so sorry for all the times I failed you." Eleanor nodded, her heart beginning to lighten. "I just want to feel like I belong. I want to know that I'm loved, that I matter." "You matter to me more than anything," Clara said, her voice breaking slightly. "I love you, Eleanor. You are my daughter, and I will always fight for you from now on." As they sat there, the sun began to peek through the clouds, casting warm rays of light upon them. Clara and Eleanor shared a long gaze, the silent understanding passing between them like a bridge. "I've missed you, Mom," Eleanor whispered, tears still in her eyes, but now mixed with a hint of relief. "I've missed you too, sweetheart," Clara replied, her heart swelling with love. "Let's promise to keep talking, to keep being honest with one another." Eleanor nodded, a small smile breaking through her tears. It was a fragile smile, but it was a start. They embraced tightly, holding on to one another as if trying to weave back the threads that had unraveled between them. In that moment, it felt as if a renewed sense of connection was blossoming. The road ahead would not be easy, but both Clara and Eleanor knew they were willing to walk it together. Clara stood in front of the mirror, her heart pounding in her chest. Today was the day she would confront Gregory. She had spent too long in silence, letting his harsh words and cold demeanor dictate the atmosphere of their home. Eleanor needed her to be strong, and Clara had finally found the courage to stand up for her daughter. As she walked down the hallway, each step felt heavier than the last. She could hear Gregory in the living room, his voice deep and commanding as he spoke on the phone. Clara took a deep breath and pushed the door open, stepping into the room where years of tension had built up like a tightly wound spring. "Gregory," she said, her voice steady but firm. He looked up, surprise flashing across his face. "Clara, I'm busy right now. Can't this wait?" "No, it can't," she replied, crossing her arms over her chest. "We need to talk about Eleanor." His expression shifted to one of irritation. "What about her? She's just being dramatic. You know how teenagers are." Clara felt a surge of anger. "This isn't just teenage drama, Gregory. You've pushed her away for too long. She feels like she has no one to turn to, and that's on you." Gregory leaned back in his chair, his brow furrowing. "I'm just trying to raise her right. She needs discipline. You're too soft on her." Clara stepped closer, her heart racing. "Discipline doesn't mean belittling her. You don't see how your words cut her deeply. She's hurting, Gregory. Can't you see that?" He shook his head, a sneer forming on his lips. "You're just making excuses for her. She needs to learn to be strong, just like I had to." "Strong?" Clara echoed, her voice rising. "You think pushing her away makes her strong? She's fragile right now. You are breaking her spirit." Gregory's defensiveness flared. "And what about me, Clara? I'm the one trying to maintain order in this house. Someone has to keep things in line." Clara clenched her fists at her sides, feeling the heat of frustration wash over her. "Order? You call this chaos order? You have no idea what it's like for her. You've made this house a place of fear, not a home." He stood up, towering over her. "How dare you speak to me like that? I'm the one who pays the bills. I provide for this family." "Providing doesn't mean controlling," Clara shot back, her voice firm. "Being a father isn't just about financial support, it's about being there emotionally too, and you have failed at that." Gregory's expression hardened, and for a moment, the room was silent, the air thick with tension. Clara felt the walls of their marriage closing in around her. She had never spoken to him like this before, and the weight of her words hung heavily between them. "Maybe I should have done more," he finally said, his voice low. "But I'm not going to apologize for wanting what's best for her." Clara took a deep breath, her resolve strengthening. Wanting what's best for her doesn't mean you can belittle her feelings. I can't stand by and let you continue to push her away. I choose to stand up for Eleanor, and I won't let you stop me. Gregory's eyes widened in disbelief. "So, what are you saying? You'll just let her walk all over us?" "No," Clara replied calmly. "I'm saying we need to change. We need to listen to her. If you truly care about her, you'll find a way to be there for her. Otherwise, you will lose her." He stared at her, a mix of anger and confusion playing on his features. "And what if I don't want to change?" "Then I will have to choose," Clara said, her voice steady. "I will choose Eleanor's happiness over the status quo of this family. I won't be afraid anymore." With that, Clara turned and walked out of the room, leaving Gregory in stunned silence. She knew this was just the beginning, but she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. For the first time in years, she had spoken her truth, and she was ready to fight for her daughter. Eleanor stood by her bedroom window, gazing out at the world beyond the confines of her home. The sun was rising, casting a warm glow over the trees of evergreen. For the first time in a long while, she felt a sense of hope. The weight of Gregory's oppressive presence was starting to lift, and with it, her spirit began to soar. She turned away from the window and picked up her sketchbook. Art had always been her escape, a way to express the feelings she could not put into words. As she flipped through the pages, she could see the evolution of her journey. Each drawing told a story of dreams that had been stifled but were now beginning to emerge. Clara entered the room quietly, sensing the shift in the atmosphere. "Eleanor?" she called softly. Eleanor looked up, her heart swelling with warmth at her mother's presence. "Mom, look, I've been working on some new sketches." Clara approached, her eyes lighting up as she examined the drawings. "These are beautiful, sweetheart. You have such talent." "Thanks," Eleanor replied, her cheeks flushing slightly. "I feel like I'm finally finding my voice." Clara's heart swelled with pride. "I'm so glad to hear that. You deserve to express yourself freely." Eleanor hesitated for a moment before speaking again. "Mom, do you think we can really change things? Can we build a new life without Dad's control?" Clara took a deep breath, her own fears bubbling to the surface. "I believe we can, but it will take time. We need to support each other and be honest about our feelings." Eleanor nodded, feeling a flicker of determination. "I want to be brave. I want to go to art school and show my work. I want to live for myself." Her mother smiled warmly. "That's a wonderful goal, Eleanor. I will support you every step of the way." The two shared a moment of silence, the bond between them growing stronger. Clara reflected on her own failures, the times she had chosen silence over action, but she was ready to change that. "Can we talk about Dad?" Eleanor asked cautiously, her voice barely above a whisper. Clara nodded, her heart racing. "Yes, we need to address this. What do you want to say?" Eleanor took a deep breath. "I just want him to understand how his actions hurt us. I want him to see that his control is not love. I need him to know that it pushed me away." Clara felt the weight of her daughter's words. "You're right. I've seen how his behavior has affected both of us. We need to find a way to express this to him, together." "Together," Eleanor repeated, feeling the strength of their shared resolve. "Maybe if we show him how we feel, he'll understand." Clara smiled, her heart swelling with hope. "Let's write down our feelings. We can make a list of everything we want him to know." As they sat together on the floor of Eleanor's room, the atmosphere shifted from tension to collaboration. They began to write, sharing thoughts and emotions that had simmered beneath the surface for far too long. After a while, Eleanor looked up from the paper and met her mother's eyes. "Mom, I never thought we could do this. It feels good to talk about it." Clara reached out and squeezed Eleanor's hand. "This is just the beginning. We have each other now, and we can face anything together." Eleanor smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her. "I feel like I can finally breathe." "Good," Clara said, her voice steady and filled with conviction. "We will create a safe space for both of us, where we can share our dreams and fears without judgment. This is our new beginning." As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Eleanor and Clara felt a renewed sense of purpose. They were ready to confront the past and forge a new path together. With each word they wrote, they were not just preparing for a confrontation with Gregory, but also healing the wounds that had kept them apart for so long. The world outside continued to wake, oblivious to the transformation taking place within the Evergreen household. Eleanor and Clara, hand in hand, were ready to take their first steps toward a brighter future, driven by love and understanding. Share this story if you believe that love and understanding can help us overcome even the toughest challenges. Leave a comment about a time when opening up changed your life, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like this one.